Hello, and welcome to episode number 339 of the Board Game Barrage podcast, a podcast about board games, the latest hotness, and how to have fun with your friends when you're losing. I am Kellen, the Red Tank, and I am joined by Neelan and Mark. We have always kept things platonic here. Say hello, Neelan and Mark.
Hello, platonic.
Hey.
Platonic friends. But with that caveat warning out of the way, today we're going to be talking about one and done games. If you catch my drift. Brian gives us this topic suggestion where he wants to know about games that you should play once and then never call/play again. But before we do that, we're going to talk about the games that we have been playing, and we've got some hot one and doners here for the podcast. Mark is going to talk to us about Kaivai, a game I have no idea how to spell, and I wrote it out phonetically on my little intro sheet. I will be talking to us about East India Companies, a game Neelan and I played, and Neelan will get us the hottest of the hottest, not a New York 9, but a genuine 10 out of 10, Vantage.
Nice.
There it is.
Okay. It's almost creepier when there's no reaction. Mark, why don't you kick us off with Kaivai?
Yeah, I'm going to kick us off with the hottest of the hot, a game from 20 years ago that is no longer available to buy, and yet I'm going to cover it on this podcast. So makes a lot of sense. So this is Kaivai for all you out there. Yes, I was going to say for all you out there who don't know how to spell it, including Kellen, it is Kaivai. Kaivai.
I think the thing I like the most about this by reading the description is that it says Kaivai by the Ostertag brothers, as if they're the dynamic design duo who are still very much in the game, which I don't think they are.
Okay, so yes, let me get into this. So after years of trying to track this down, thanks to my friend Cameron, I finally got a chance to play Kaivai, designed by the aforementioned Ostertag brothers, Anselm and Helge. Not too much information available about Anselm anymore, but Helge is one of the designers behind the Terra Mystica Gaia Project Age of Innovation line of games.
You know what? I thought I should have recognized that name.
Yeah.
That's embarrassing. Yeah.
So, so some pedigree, at least half pedigree there. Anyway, this was published by Fificaspiel. And if that name doesn't ring a bell to you, it didn't ring a bell to me either, and might be an indication why this game is so hard to find. So, Kaivai is a city-building, tile-laying economic game with really, really strong splatter vibes. Most importantly in terms of the gameplay, but also in terms of the look, the artwork, the components, real heavy splatter vibes when you take a look at this game. If you didn't know any better, and someone told you that this was a game that the splatter fellas designed after Bus and before Indonesia, it would fit perfectly in that sort of vibe of game. Now, I mentioned
because it looks like
your words, not mine. It has a sort of made in the garage feeling to it. Not like
yeah. Garage core,
exactly. Perfect. Now, I mentioned the most important part of that splatter comparison is the gameplay, and it is very true because while Kaivai is a city building game, and I've seen those before, obviously, tile laying, certainly seen that before, and economic game, which is very much a type of game I enjoy to play and have seen a bunch of, it combines them in a very, very unique way where the central crux is in its action selection, specifically the way you use action points in this game. So in Kaivai, what you're trying to do is sail your ships around the sea, going to islands, building either ship huts from which to launch more ships, meeting huts where you're going to get action points in general. I'll speak more about those later. Or fishing villages where you'll be able to fish, which is the main economic engine of the game, catching fish and then selling them. So before we talk about the actions you can do in the game, the first thing you can do every round is bid for turn order. Now, you're not bidding currency. You're bidding basically for initiative, for the speed of your boats, and for the cost of your buildings. Let me explain this because this is a really interesting aspect of the game. So before any of the 10 rounds start, you're going to bid a number from 0 to 10, starting with the player who's furthest behind in terms of points. You can bid, again, anything from 0 to 10, but once you've bid a number, nobody else can bid that same number. And then whoever bids the highest number goes first, whoever bids the lowest number goes last. But as I mentioned, you're not paying anything when you're making these bids. Instead, wherever you are in this bidding order is going to determine your attributes for the round. So, for example, if you bid a 10, you are guaranteed to go first because there's no higher number than 10 in the scale. But the base cost for you to build any building in that round is going to be 10, which is as expensive as a building can get in terms of base cost. And your speed for the right to bid 10 is going to be 0, so it's going to be very hard for you to move your ships around if you take any actions that require movement. So that's the con side of bidding 10 and going first. Conversely, if you bid 0, you're definitely going to go last because, again, nobody can underbid you. But the cost for you to build buildings is a base of 0, making it quite cheap to build buildings. However, your speed also going to be 0, but whoever goes last also gets the right to place a new island tile out at the beginning of every round. And at the end of the game, the size of an island is going to determine where you're going to get points in this area majority aspect at the end of the game. And that's quite a strong ability in this game. So that's another reason why you might want to bid low and make sure you go last. Finally, if you bid somewhere in the middle, say 5, for example, then your order in terms of the turn order of that round is up in the air depending on what other people bid. And in the case of a bid of 5, your base cost, again, to build a building is going to be 5. But your speed is going to be 5 also, and that makes you much more maneuverable when it comes to taking actions that require moving around the board. So let's talk real quick about the actions you can take. First is sailing, which is moving around the board with your ships. Pretty self-explanatory. There are building buildings. Again, the base cost for the building buildings is determined by your opening bid for every round. And again, the buildings you can build is like allowing you to launch more ships. Fishing huts that make your fishing strength in that island stronger. More about that in a second. Well, actually, while we're talking about fishing, let's talk about the fishing action, which is another action in the game. So again, fishing is the main economic driver of the game. And when you fish, it's going to depend on how many fishing huts you have on the island where you're fishing. That's going to determine how many dice you roll to see how many fish you acquire. And this is another cool aspect of the game because depending on how strong your fishing action is, you're going to be rolling some number of custom dice of varying sizes. So if you are fishing with a strength of 1, if you only have 1 fishing hut, you get to roll the largest die, which has 5 successes and 1 failure. If you fish with a strength of 2, you get that biggest die, and then you also get the second biggest die, which has 4 successes and 2 failures. All the way to a maximum fishing strength of 4, and in which case the smallest die that you'll be rolling has 2 successes and 4 failures. So it's sort of like is a counter to the efficiency of building a lot of fishing huts in one area. Let's talk about another action real quick, which is the selling of the fish. Again, this is the main economic engine. You try to get fish and then you sell them. This is another very, very fascinating aspect of the game. So you're going to carry around the fish that you get in your boats and you're selling them to the different huts that people have built throughout the game. The thing is, if you sell your fish to your opponent's huts, you get currency that can be used to build more buildings. But if you sell your fish to your own huts, you don't get anything immediately. However, there is another action in this game called Celebrate, for whatever reason, and that is the way that you clear the huts of the fish that have been delivered in order to make more room for them. But what happens is, when you take that Celebrate action, any huts that you clear are going to give points to the owner of that hut. So what that means is, if I want to get money, I could deliver some of my fish to Kellen's hut, and that would give me money immediately, whereas if I gave myself fish, I would get no money. But when those fish are scored through that Celebrate action, in that case, Kellen would score the points instead of me. And this is a game where you're not going to score very many points at all throughout the course of the game. So that giving of points to another player is like a really, really weighty decision to make. So I've talked about all these interesting aspects in terms of like the actions you can take, but I still haven't gotten to the most fundamental, most, I think, interesting aspect of the game, which is the action points that you're actually going to spend to take any of the actions. So at the beginning of the game, you're going to get 3 tokens that signify the 3 action points you have to start the game. Whenever an action is taken for the very first time in a round, you're going to take an action point from the supply and place it on that action. If someone wants to take that same action later in that same round, they have to spend as many action points as are on that action. So for example, if I take the fishing action for the first time in a round, I take an action point from the supply, I put it on the fishing action. Then if I or Kellen or Neelan wants to take that fishing action again in that round, because there's already 1 action point on the fishing action, they have to spend an action point. And now there's 2. Now if somebody else wants to take that same action that round, they have to spend 2, and they spend them and they place them on the fishing action, and now it costs 4. And these action points, there is no real income of action points. So those 3 you have to start are all you're going to have in the game unless specific things happen. There is a way to get more action points based on that whoever goes last in the round gets to place an island tile on an island. If you happen to have a certain type of building on that tile, you get some action points. However, action points are at such a premium in this game that you can choose to, and you are likely to do this in a game, forego your entire turn, of which you only have 10 in the entire game, but forego an entire round's worth of actions in order to get 2 action points. So they're at such a premium that you can forego 1/10 of your game to just get 2 action points. So it's really interesting and excruciating when it comes to trying to figure out when you should use these action points. I thought this game was, as hopefully I've sort of conveyed, very unusual and really remarkable. And it really upset me that I wasn't going to be able to get it without having to pay through the nose, because again, this game is very, very, very hard to find and goes for pretty crazy prices nowadays. And yet I still wanted to go and make sure I went to my BGG account to make sure I still had it as, want in trade and want to buy. And I was very, very pleasantly surprised to find out that this year, a new version of the game is coming out called Feya's Swamp. So I guess this is going to have new artwork and is an Essen, release. And I will be trying to get this game the first chance I get. If you're looking for a game that is unlike anything you've played, if you like the lighter end of Splotter, I would say games like Bus, or if you've played Con, those games, like the lighter end of Splotter games, I would absolutely recommend Kaivai, or more likely Feya's Swamp, with the caveat that I don't know what kind of changes they've made to the game in Feya's Swamp.
Yeah, so if you're curious, Mark, I was doing a tiny bit of digging. I was hoping actually to spring the grand reveal of Feya's Swamp on you, actually.
Okay.
But there's a couple of points here that I think are pretty cool. It sounds like it's definitely been revised, at least a little bit.
Okay.
It is being revised and developed by the original creators, so the return of Anselm Ostertag and the Ostertag brothers. Nice. And yeah, by all accounts, very, very positive impressions. I think Kaivai are already calling it like their favorite game of the year so far. So, really good, solid first impressions on Feya's Swamp and even the changes it's been making, which I do think it is slightly different from what I can tell, but like not dramatically so.
Okay, yeah. My only concern is I hope they don't soften it too much, because it can be a very, very harsh, very like, as you would expect from like Splotter games where like there are sharp elbows and, not very sanded off. There's also an aspect where, because of that whole delivering fish to your opponents in order to get money but giving them points, there is some table talk. There is bartering and cajoling at the table to deliver to your huts and not to your opponent's huts. And so some players may be turned off at that aspect. So this is not a game for everyone, but I think, again, if this sounds like a game that you are interested in, I would implore you to, at the very least, try to play it, and if you're like me, get your hands on a copy of it. So again, that is going to be re-implemented this year as Feya's Swamp by the Ostertag brothers and published by Spiel originally, and by who's publishing Feya's Swamp?
Grail, I believe, are doing Feya's Swamp.
Okay,
Grail Games.
Great. So yes, that is Kaivai / Feya's Swamp. Big hit for me.
I'm glad to see that the new version is anthropomorphized animals, because that's the only reason that I would be interested in jumping into this.
Of course.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
Speaking of jumping into the swamp, Neelan and I had a chance to play a game called East India Companies, which I think has to come with an asterisk, similar to Archipelago, which is that it is depicting a unfortunate event and not really grappling with the theme similar to Archipelago. Yeah, I don't know much about this theme, to be honest with you. It actually has made me a little more curious into looking into it, which I guess you could say is an upside to thematically tying games like this. In East India Companies, you are shipping companies that are trading tea, coffee, and spice. You are managing a shipping company, and it's almost like a baby 18xx stock Euro game for Euro babies. Okay? I feel like this is like a diamond in the rough, or one that has not gotten as much attention as it should have. Neelan and I had a chance to play it. There is a market of goods that people want in Europe, and then there is a market of goods available as you sort of sail. You are buying boats. You are buying different kinds of boats. You are doing worker placement to unlock little benefits and abilities, and jockeying for turn order, and making it cheaper for you to get certain types of resources, or letting you see how these markets are very flexible or interconnected, as in if a bunch of tea gets dumped into Europe, the next round it's going to be much harder for tea to score generously because there's too much tea in Europe. And all of that is laid over the top of the ability to invest invest in each other's companies. So Nealon is controlling a color on the board. I can buy stock in Nealon, and ergo Nealon must pay me dividends on every future turn. The money that each company acquires is not yours until you've paid out the dividends each turn. This is sort of a very procedural 5-round game where it's turn order time, it's buy stock time, it's do all the worker placement time, then the markets get updated. You have sort of a fuzzy understanding of what's happening in the markets. You see some dice that have been rolled, but there is a face-down card, and you can use one of your worker placement spots to lock in what you want that card to be. If you're all in on one of the resource types and you want to hurt another player, you can do that. There is an element of momentum for the stock of your company, as in if you make $20 the first round, I'm sure it's not dollars. I'm sure it's more thematic than dollars. If you make $20 and then in a future turn you only make $10, you actually lose stock value because the momentum of your company is waning. The end of the game is really just who has the most money, and each share is paid out at the rate that the current stock is worth. So the stock in different players is going up, but you start with 2 master shares of your own company, and you can buy during one phase, and on one phase only of the game, but you can sell at any point that you want. And so I could have 3 shares of Nealon, and he is worth 10, and that would get me $30, but then his stock would go down 3 values of points down to 7, and Nealon, that would affect his endgame scoring pretty dramatically. This has a similar market feel to me of Archipelago, where there's sort of multiple markets happening and you're trying to get into the certain types of supply. There's some fun elements of, do I want a fast boat that is going to let me unload my goods and buy goods first, or do I want a boat with a ton of capacity? But really, the market is the star here, mixed with the stock, all in this very Euro. Nealon, what did you think of East India companies?
Yeah, I liked it. I think the caveat from my experience is I still haven't played that 18xx game. I've been promising Mark I would play it for years at this point. But this does capture what my understanding is of those games, which is to say that it's the logistics married with the stock trading and kind of the jostling between those things. And what this kind of does ostensibly is boil down the logistics to kind of a couple of key systems, all of which I think feel really, really good to me. Like the heart of the shipping section, where you're kind of deciding in turn order where you're deploying your ships face down, such that if you have a faster ship, it's going to get to that dock before another player, but then that tie is broken by how quickly you place your ship down there. There's a lot of really good decisions there, because there are 3 ports, so it's okay, do I go all in and put my fastest ship here, or do I kind of hedge my bets a little bit more and wait and then save my fastest ship for later, knowing that I might lose out on that tiebreaker? Very, very good. A lot to think about in that system alone.
Everyone pick up your ships. And that's yes. What we did. And then we're blind bidding on where they're going to go. And Nealon put his first ship down, but that's not his best ship, because his best ship he can put in later. So I think he's going to put in his best ship over here, and then he's going to lock down the coffee supply, and I'm
Exactly. I think one of the things that makes the whole system even better is when you're choosing which ship to buy, it's that trade-off between, do I want to take a ship that's slower but carries a lot, or one that's faster that carries a little. So a lot of really, really good but simple decisions. Simple in that there's not a whole lot to them mechanically, but a lot of weight behind which of those decisions you make. Turn order, like you said, is massive, but
huge.
Is spending one of your 3 actions to get turn order worth it? Big impact decisions. I do think the only complaint I would have is the game ran a little bit long. I was kind of advocating for maybe this would be better if it was 1 round shorter. I don't know if that would work necessarily, but it just kind of felt when it went on a little bit long. But everything in there I think is real solid.
Yep. And I think we played it at 3, and my guess is it would only be better at 4, with just a little bit more cajoling. I think the weird thing is my guess is that a Mark might scoff at it and be like, this isn't my Cube Rails 18xx stock game. But in a sea of same Euro game, this is so refreshing, because it's still right there with those games, but it's about stock manipulation and about sort of a player-driven market. So it just immediately feels like it distances itself. But it's like it has all the production of a modern Euro, and even the over-the-top board of like, wait a minute, why is this board so ridiculous when, it could probably be like 4 spreadsheets instead of the sort of expanded board. Mark, have we persuadest thou to become an East India Trading Company player?
You have, and not only have you persuaded me to try it, this is actually a game I traded for a couple months ago, but I've not played. So you are now moving it up in my to-play order of games.
You guys, your group will totally get a kick out of it, whether it like outlasts those other ones, but like, again, it just also runs really smoothly.
Yeah.
Like it's almost like, and we were reminded a little bit of Mombasa, right? Which has some similar like Euro-y elements. They're pretty different games. Yeah.
City of the Big Shoulders also felt like a very big reference to me, but I mean, City of the Big Shoulders is still very heavy, but like in the same way that it streamlines out a lot of the 18XX, this kind of does that, but in an even lighter and slightly different direction. So,
more approachable. That's great.
Yeah, for sure.
Very good. That is East India Companies, one that I'm eager to get back to the table at a 4-player count. And now, Neelan, everyone's been waiting with bated breath.
So
he comes into the room with the candles lit.
Yeah, totally. The soft music playing, and what's that smell?
That's a Stonemeyer reference for those who know. If you know, you know. The candle's lit.
Oh my god, that's not staying
what?
in.
Yeah, what are you talking about? That can't stay in.
Okay,
what?
fine.
Neelan, you think people are going to be like, you spoiled it? You
Wait, I don't know what
okay.
the references.
It's a double on top. There's layers.
Neelan. Okay, this is Vantage. Much anticipated Vantage. This is by Jamie Stegmaier and Stonemeyer Games. And I should say right at the top that this was sent to us as a review copy by Stonemeyer. I think that like I'm going to barrel through the things that are like super obvious. Production values, amazing. Gorgeous looking game. Very easy to play. Incredible art. All of that you come to expect from every Stonemeyer game is present in Vantage. What is Vantage, though? Vantage is a open world exploration cooperative game. It is very, very freeform. I almost hesitate to call it a cooperative game, even though that's absolutely what it is, because by design, literally printed on the board, are the words, hey, when you complete a mission or fulfill your destiny, you've successfully completed the game, or whatever metric you define as success. And that is kind of the vibe of this game. It's not really about fulfilling a specific goal. It is about having a great time. And I know that I already have Mark and Kellen checking their phones. They've checked out. They're not 100%. Anymore. They're 100%. Not interested in playing Vantage.
The winner is the vibes winner. I am concerned.
But if you're still here and you're still listening, let me tell you that in the genre of open world narrative storytelling games, this is one of the best. So that's cutting to the chase. I've not even explained what the game is, so let me circle back to this. What you're doing in Vantage is you are a team of people who have crash landed on a planet. This is represented as a fully mapped out world, which kind of has I assume a grid of locations from like one corner to the other. It is massive. In multiple games of this, you are not likely to end up anywhere close to a location that you have been before, because you get this randomly assigned location, and the game quite cleverly distributes players so they're not even close to each other. All you have is a location card with an image on it with, again, gorgeous art. And considering that there are like 800-ish different locations in the game, and each one of these cards has this like nice giant card of art that takes up almost the entirety of the space in the card, it's really, really stunning. On your turn, you're going to look at your location card and kind of sort of trying to assess what are the options I have available to me based on the verbs written in the bottom right of this card. There are always 6 verbs in every single card, and they're going to be stuff like climb, gather, focus, listen, kind of very esoteric single words that don't necessarily make a lot of sense. And the idea is to kind of look at the card, get some semblance of an idea of what you think would make sense using those verbs, or what you could think is going to make sense as the action you want to take. You're going to consult a book. It does become effectively a sort of a choose-your-own-adventure style system where you're going to choose an action in the book and then do a challenge, a skill challenge. The big thing that this game does is you cannot fail these challenges. It is not a game that is designed to punish you. It is not a game that is designed to necessarily tell you, nope, sorry, you tried to climb this mountain, but no, you fell to your death below. That's kind of not what it's going for. You succeed no matter what, but when you roll for the challenge, you're kind of assigning effectively damage to a bunch of different hit points you have. You have morale, you have health, you have time. And when you roll those dice, any dice that you don't assign to cards on your board, you kind of take those as hits. So it is about mitigating all of those hits at every point. Other players can assist by submitting skill tokens. You can use these on your items, your acquired equipment, your skills, in order to mitigate the losses of the action you took. You read an entry in the book. These entries are all kind of always short. They're like a little sentence long. They will usually reward you with something, some item, some skill token, what have you. And then that's the end of your turn. And that is really all there is to the game. It is a series of taking actions, moving around this world, describing what you're seeing to other players until you satisfy the mission objective, which is randomized at the start of the game, or a destiny that you might accrue during the course of the game, or, as I mentioned earlier, whatever metric of success you define. In all the games I've played of this, they've kind of ended in this sort of nebulous way where, only one was one where we had both sort of completed a mission and a destiny and kind of felt, okay, we quote unquote won the game. But sometimes we were just like, I just think that we've done the sort of gist of the things we kind of felt inclined to do. We're happy like ending it there, or getting to a point where we kind of felt that we completed one small thing, not necessarily all parts of the mission, kind of felt satisfied with that session. They have kind of all ended in this sort of sense of discovering something that we hadn't seen before, which is one of the things I can't stress enough is so impressive about this game. The wealth of stuff that's in here that you don't even know exists when you start playing the game. Because one of the things I want to stress is that rule set that I just described, that is kind of the beginning and the end of the rule book. And then every other mechanic and system in the game is designed for you to discover for the first time, where you kind of lay eyes on in the rulebook. There's stuff in here that's like nuts. It's hard. This kind of review gets weird because I don't want to spoil a lot of the things that are in there. Because a lot of the time, like, get to the end of the first game, I'll try an action and be like, wait, I could have done this whole time? Because this whole thing that I didn't know was here. But the game never specifically points you in that direction. It's about feeling at the systems and kind of discovering what's there to be found. And like I said, the next time you play it, you'll be in a completely different part of the map. You don't even have like a visual map of the world. You're kind of just assembling this picture based on the experiences you have, like you've had on previous games. One of the things I think that I really adore about it is it does become this experience of kind of telling your story to the other players at the table, because there's not really like any noteworthy interaction. It's kind of just like, here's what I've been doing, but you get invested. At least I did. Like I care about what the other people are telling me about what they're seeing. You can't even show the card you're looking at to another player. So you're just basing everything you're imagining about their story based on how they're describing it to you, which is just kind of a magical idea, I think, at least. I do want to say, because I do have some caveats here, which is to say that like, if I hadn't sort of already lost a lot of people earlier when I kind of described the systems of this game and maybe the lack of systems, I will say that even mechanically, even what is in there is quite slight. I found it quite easy after a while to like be able to mitigate all of the losses in a way that didn't really feel very satisfying. I never kind of felt a lot of the time that I was really moving towards the loss condition, except over the long course of time, sometimes longer than I'd like. So it didn't feel like challenging mechanically in that regard, but again, that's probably not what it's there for. The other problem I maybe have with it, having now played it as much as I have, is I do feel that after a while, you start to feel like you're kind of scratching a lot of systems kind of repeatedly in a way that sometimes feels like you've seen stuff before in different variations. I do think a lot of like the narrative structure in there, while quite broad and quite interesting and kind of honestly kind of amazing in the scope and the width of it, isn't always that deep. It doesn't really feel like you're grappling with something that's narratively like chunky, But it's such an incredible construction. I think that this is going to be like a huge success for them. Like if you've had experience with stuff like Seventh Continent, may be a bad example, but stuff like Sleeping Gods or open world games, Earthborn Ranges is one I've heard this compared to a lot as well, but are looking for something that's a lot more casual, a lot more accessible, that you can kind of play with anyone, I would definitely recommend this.
So let me ask you a couple questions. How long are play sessions? Is it just until you're done, or?
Pretty much, yeah. I would say that if you're actually intent on completing the mission, like if you're intent on winning, you're probably looking at about three hours. Okay, so it's a longer session. So it is, I think, probably going to be 2 to 4 hours, probably for most games. Some of them I've found were a lot shorter than that, or closer to 2 hours. Some we kind of tapped out after 4 hours and like, yeah, I feel like we're done. We're happy to like end it here. Or we got like 2/3 of the progress or 9/10 of the progress towards a mission and just felt like, yeah, this is good enough. I should emphasize this. This is important. I should have said this at the top. It is not a campaign game. You do not carry any progress forward from one game to the next. It is a full reset. It is a single session game where kind of all you're really retaining is kind of your information that you've learned about the game and its systems, you know?
So it's not really built to pause the game and come back to it. You would basically just like leave it on the table if you wanted to do something like that.
Totally. I did that once where we kind of had a session that we kind of resumed a couple of days later. I just left it all out. It doesn't even really have like any save system built in, you know, which actually surprised me a little bit. But the best you could probably do if you really had to pack it up would just be take a picture of everyone's board. Yeah. You'd have to reassemble all the cards.
Whatever you would do for a normal game. Like
exactly.
Other, like,
yeah, exactly. So I will say that one of the things that's quite neat about this, like in a components thing, like as compared to like a lot of other games of this type, kind of component light. That's going to sound like a little bit ridiculous, but it's really only decks of cards and a couple of little trackers. You know, that's really all there is to it, and some dice. So the systems that they have built around an entirely card-based action, ability, equipment, spells, everything is just based on cards and placing them in your grids and how they interact mechanically with those challenge dice is both a strength, but also kind of makes it feel like, you know, a spell is an item, is an ability. Everything kind of feels like it is largely the same, just in slightly different flavors. But they get a lot of mileage out of that flavor, you know, making a spell feel different to how an ability feels and so on.
Right.
Super fascinating.
And so just to get like a sort of picture of what a play session sort of looks like, each player has their own card with this image and they're reading this stuff out. Are you reading it out to other people? Are you reading it to yourself? Like, where is the conversational interaction? I know that you're not interacting like on a board or anything, but where is the actual interaction at that point?
So on your turn, what you're going to be doing is typically you'll be describing what you're seeing, saying to someone like, oh, well, you know, in as much as you're willing to talk about loud about what you're thinking, here are the things I'm able to do. Here's the little blurb of text on my card. This is what I see. Okay, I'm going to choose listen on card, you know, my card is number 333. Then someone else, a lot of my games are 2-player, so the other player would then find that book, find the entry, read out like this, you know, 3-word or whatever, a couple of words description. That gives you the challenge, and then you succeed, and then you read the rest of the text and the result of that. One thing I should also point out, which I would definitely say is probably going to be a negative for some people, is that system specifically, you don't know the consequences of what you're choosing until you choose it. You know, it is very much like, I'm going to climb. And once they start reading climb, you're climbing, you know, like whether or not it's a challenge 7 or a challenge 1, you're doing it without knowing, you know, without fully knowing that that's the choice you were making. But that is, again, kind of just something you have to roll with if you're going to get into it.
Sort of sounds like in that respect, like Above and Below.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah, exactly. It is certainly like in the direction of Laucat games, I would say, for sure. I've not played Tales of the Arabian Nights, but like maybe in that direction as Seems well, like from what I can tell.
And not that it even really matters, but is there an opportunity for players to wind up in the same location? I guess that doesn't even... Oh, there is.
No, there absolutely is. And honestly, sometimes it's a lot easier than you would think, because there are cards, you know, that can give you like very rapid transport options, you know, without being too specific. And sometimes you're just like, yeah, sure, let's just like show up at the same place. And then you could just travel together, you know, and sort of tackle stuff together. There's not like a huge advantage to really doing that, but like you absolutely can.
Yeah. And finally, I don't mean to like say this in like a negative way, but this is like a very well done, very fleshed out, cooperative choose your own adventure sort of game, right?
Yeah.
Like that's what we're talking about.
Absolutely. Yeah. The mechanics that are present are thin, broad, very broad, but quite thin. Yeah. And the large bulk of what you're doing is choosing an entry in a book, reading the consequences, getting something and carrying on, you know, like it sort of elevates beyond just being books,
Sure,
but it is
of course.
just a lot of books and a lot of cards,
Gotcha.
That's kind of what it is. I want to just talk very quickly about like player count stuff, because I play this at 2 and 3 players. And while the game goes up to 6, I can't imagine playing it with more than 3. It just kind of feels you want the turns to either be like going back and forth or moving very quickly around the table, because turns are typically short, but they can sometimes just drag on a little bit, and you just, you don't have a lot to do on someone else's turn other than just like wait to take yours. So it feels like an optimal at 2 situation, honestly. So the idea that it goes up to 6 is kind of nuts to me, but there it is.
So I guess as someone who has played Tales of Arabian Nights, like part of that is like it's this sort of swashbuckling adventure. Like you turned into a genie and now you can't talk for 20 minutes. Like, could you play Vantage like 60 times and have read the novel, so to speak, and then you're done? Not that that's a problem. That would be a lot of plays of a game. But like, is there... or is it the journey along the way where you're sort of like, wasn't it funny the time that your spaceship broke? I know nothing about the mechanism, so all my examples are Kellen.
No. I think
except for the candle.
It's probably a little bit of both. Where I do think you are going to come away from practically every game having seen something or described something, or at least heard someone experience something that you haven't before. As recently as like the most recent game I played, there was something that we did for the first time, and I was just like, I cannot believe that this is here. And not in a way that, I may be overselling that a little bit, but like sometimes it's just like, this is nuts. I didn't think this was possible. And it's just cool to be discovering things like that, like 4 or 5 games later is like super, super cool. I do think I was maybe getting to a point at around game 5 where I'm like, okay, I can kind of see this curve flattening out. Like I do think that there's, unless there is really just some, there could be any number of things that there are left to discover. You're still kind of bulk seeing stuff you've seen before, obviously, at that point. So will it plateau out eventually? Absolutely. But like, what game doesn't, I suppose? And even like a game of this scale has to eventually get to a point where you've seen most of it. So yeah, I think it's likely that will happen, but I'm impressed by how much there is in here before that happens.
Yeah, that's awesome.
It's been a weird one to kind of sort of know how to recommend to people, because I do know that like instantly there are going to be people that are just like, yeah, there's no world where this is a game that would make sense. I would say that is probably true for the both of you. I don't think there's a world where you're going to like even have a really positive reaction to your first game of this. I could be wrong. Like I don't want to be presumptuous about that, but it's more vibes and storytelling based than it is like a mechanical strong highlight,
I'm surprised slightly that you are convinced this is going to be a hit. I mean, I would say, especially like, for example, given what happened to Seventh Continent, like super, super, super hot when it first came out. And then I think it like, not completely, but to some extent lost a lot of that. I understand that Stonemaier does things really, really well. And this seems to be beautiful and really well done. I just don't know if this is the itch people want to scratch when they're playing board games, but maybe it is. I don't know. It's not for me, but I'm just curious.
I could be wrong, and I could be very, very wrong. I will say, to speak to like the comparison to Seventh Continent, which I think is one that a lot of people are going to be making, I think that I was not having a good time in Seventh Continent on game 1, Like,
right, okay.
I think that this is so much more magical by comparison. My suspicion is that there are going to be a lot of people that will just be like, I will bounce off this entirely. A lot of people that will have a similar experience to my first game, which was like, this was really magical. I wasn't expecting this to be like as good as it is. And then we'll maybe not have a subsequent second play that hits that high,
Sure.
And for some people, this will just be something where they want to explore every single inch of this, and we'll come back to this again and again with different groups and, discover stuff each time. But like, I don't know exactly where it's going to net out. I'll be honest. I do think my gut says that this is like the most solid thing that Stonemaier has done since Scythe, but like it's been a bit of a spotty track record, if I'm being honest. So that's maybe not saying a lot for our particular taste or our particular audience. So yeah, that is.
I think it's awesome.
It's cool that it exists.
But before you, Neelan, would you say that we should each try it at least once?
Maybe. God, I don't know. I have a suspicion that there's very little that either of you would get out of it, but
it sounds like it would be fun. It just doesn't sound like it scratches the itch that board games do
totally.
for me at all.
I think that's exactly right. I think that for a lot of people listening to this podcast, by virtue of the kind of the nichiness of our audience, I would say, I think a lot of people are going to sort of even hear that description and be like, yeah, no, I don't know. I don't think so. But yeah, that's fine. That is Vantage by Stonemaier Games.
All right. Here we are. We're talking about the games that we have all played once, not together necessarily, because that would be weird in a different way, but that we played once and we're done, and here we are, one and done board games. I think there's some really low-hanging fruit here, hombres. I tried to get a layup. I tried to give Neil a layup, and he declined. He declined and said, no, you don't want to play Vantage. I was ready to play Vantage. I was ready to jump in and play my first game of Vantage. I've read many books in my day. You know what I mean? I'm ready. I'm primed for Vantage. Sit in a corner and you read a book and I'll sit in the other corner. Okay, what games immediately come to mind when you think of games? Wow, I'm really glad that I played that. So this immediately discounts all bad games. Like if the game is just like atrociously bad, where there's no world where we're happy that we did it.
Right. Yeah, these are games that we are happy that we have at least played once, or I'm going to cheat on this. Some of these are a couple times, but I am sort of satisfied with my experience, and I'm ready to move on to other things. I think the biggest type of game that fit into this criteria are what I would refer to as like event games. We were talking about this before the show, and Neelan was saying like games that are long and or heavy that you're just not going to be able to play very often. I think that's the number one type of game here.
Yeah, I think that tracks for me as well. And I think that, like, it's interesting because, like, I can already draw a distinction in my mind between the event games that I think that is true of and the ones that aren't, right? So, like for example, I just to give, like, the counterpoint, like, I would not include this game. Something like War of the Ring could easily be something like that. Like, something that takes, a fair bit of setup, requires someone that knows it very, very well. But, like, that was a game that where, like, I played once and I instantly wanted to like come back to it. Not tomorrow, not next week, not next month, but like there's a regularity which I know I want to do that again.
Yeah.
But the flip side of that is there are definitely games, and I guess just to jump into like my first example of this, like Twilight Imperium was one of those for me, where, I mean, this is literally true in my case. I played one game of Twilight Imperium. I'm very glad to have played it. It's a very quote-unquote important game in the hobby, but I don't feel like I need to play it again. Like, I kind of feel like I got what I needed to out of that play, and there are similar games I would rather turn to that, like, give me closer to what I'm looking for.
That one was really close for me. I think that's where I would put Twilight Imperium. Like, I don't really think I need to play it again, but it's sort of on the edge because I think if the game was proposed to me at a convention or something, I might want to give it another spin. Although I'm also content with never playing it again as well.
I'm happy to play Twilight Imperium more than once, but I also don't know. I don't know that I would recommend it to most people. I actually don't think most people need to play it. I think it's just like such a combination. And I know we're blending all things here. I think you can get a lot of Twilight Imperium doing other things, so it's not one that immediately sticks out. And I played it. Mark, you've only played it the one time?
That's correct.
I played it many, many times, yeah. Not many. How many is many? More than a few, right?
Yeah.
That's true.
And
5 to 7.
And definitely, I mean, but then, if I played it 8 times, I played it many
played it
times.
more than many, yeah.
More than many times. More than many times? I mean, maybe. This one is hard for me. I think that, like, the nature of having a podcast means that we all like playing games, that's like, oh, that's interesting. Like, I would play Vantage. I think I would just, like, dagger, look at Neelan the whole time read him
honestly,
the description.
A lot of the time, the reason I want to say no, because I don't want you to be staring me down being like, Neelan, really?
No.
Really? Neelan, come on though, Neelan.
I can hear
no. I know, right?
I don't do that. What are we talking about? That sounds nothing like me.
Really? Neelan? We're really doing this?
Are we? Is this what we're doing right now? Let's see. I think that it's interesting. Like, I actually think, like, Sidereal Confluence, again, these are event games. Like, I'm happy I played it. I have no interest in ever playing it again. People keep suggesting it. I have played it more than once, but I would be happy having, like, seen it. It's almost like a flavor that, like, could be what you would like, but having experienced it, you're like, yeah, I get it. Not my flavor.
Yeah.
Speaking of those type of games, and speaking of Vantage, and a game that I've referred to a bunch, but I'm happy I played Blood on the Clocktower a couple of times, but I am also not itching to play it ever again. And in that sort of same vein, event games, another one that popped to mind was Two Rooms and a Boom. A fun event game, but honestly, like, even if I was at a convention and people were playing it, I would probably not want to do it. It just feels a little bit too coin flippy to me at the end. I might be convinced, but it's also a game where if I didn't play it again, I'd be okay.
That's one that I actually like want to like more than I think I do, and I've like recently repurchased. But I hope it's not. I hope it's not the case for me with that one.
I think it's a weird one because I kind of agree with Mark a little bit, which is say that I think I still have my copy of Two Rooms in Imperium because it just occupies like such a unique space that there's like, if the time ever comes up where this is the right game to play, I will absolutely
you want to have
suggest, it. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But like, do I ever need to actually play it again for my sake? I don't know. It's such a weird one. It's so much. It should be so much better than it is, but it somehow always just kind of like breaks down a little bit.
Yeah,
that's a weird one for sure. The polar opposite end of this for me is kind of like the very, very silly, we played this once. The stupid example that just popped in my head as soon as I thought about this is like Mr. Diamond, where it's a game where it's like, everyone needs to play this. It's one of the weirdest, stupidest games you'll ever play. Do I ever need to play Mr. Diamond again?
Yes.
Probably not.
Yes.
Probably not. The other one that came to mind is what was the magnets one with the heart-shaped magnets, Mark?
Carts of Attraction.
What are you doing?
Yeah, Hearts of Attraction. That was a great time exactly once.
No, you've played it at least twice. Didn't you?
I think I have accidentally.
Okay, so liar.
Okay. Yeah. I was coerced into playing it the second time.
Oh man, you're breaking my heart with both of those. So that would be like the novelty.
Yeah, exactly. Stuff that kind of approaches kind of the more like, this is more of a novelty than it is a good game.
Yeah, I think like I'm currently at a boat where I feel like all dexterity games are basically that for me.
Actually, that's a really great pull, because I think that's maybe actually the thing that I'm sort of latching onto mentally is like, the dexterity game problem. They all feel like, I can think of so many examples of this we've played over the years where it's like, that was a really fun, weird little novel thing, but exactly once.
I think another type of game that this falls under are the historical games, like games where I'm happy to have played them because of like their place in the hobby, but I've sort of, now that I've seen them, I'm ready to move on. And while I played this game a handful of times, maybe 3 or 4 or 5, Catan is a game that is that for me. And it would qualify as a game that I would tell people who are getting into the hobby, like, you got to play at least once, but you don't really need to play more than that. I know some people will have very violent negative reactions to that analysis, but there's a couple of games where they've just been around, or they're very influential to other games, and I think it's nice to have that historical foundation, but they don't really need to play them too often.
Yeah, I think Catan is like, it's funny because this is especially relevant considering I just played it for the first time properly recently, and that was kind of my reaction too. Very glad to have played it. Like, there are very few games that occupy this space of like so historically important, but I would 100% agree with you. I don't feel like I need to play it again.
Oh, I don't know, Neelan. That was better than you thought.
It was. I think that's maybe a little bit on the cusp for me, where it's like, I don't think I would turn it down, but would I? I don't know.
Yeah. No, that makes sense. I think, but how many new Euro games that come out that you just feel this way exactly about? Like every new release.
There are a lot of them. And I will say that kind of a lot of one of the other ones that things I have on my list here is that there was a spat of a lot of the recent like Tuskini games or Terzi games are like these sort of big Euros. Like the T-Series games got to this well after a while, where you kind of felt like, okay, here's the remix of kind of the similar sort of systems into another big Euro game that I didn't. A lot of them I got to the point where I didn't feel like I needed to play any of them more than once, which is a bummer because they would have historically been some of my favorite sorts of games. Like the only one that really kind of broke out of that mold for me was, what's it called? Tilitum.
Have you played the new one, the Transgalactica?
No, is that Tuskini?
Yes, it's the latest T game, as far as I know.
Oh, sorry, this is not what I was thinking. No, I haven't.
Okay, yeah, I just traded for it. I actually hear really bad things about the rulebook.
Oh, no.
But we will find out.
Yeah. I think, unfortunately, like, there's a couple of publishers and designers who I think also fell into this well a little bit. I feel like CGE have been in this space for a little while now with a lot of their Euros, where you can kind of tell that there's a lot of love that's kind of gone into them, but they're they're not really resonating with me in the way that like they would have in previous years. Like I kind of think about Sanctum in this realm a little bit, a game that kind of could have been really good, but you kind of just played it once, like I don't know. It's not. Yeah. It's novel. It's interesting. I really admire what they're going for. I want to show this to people, but is it really that good? I don't know. Deal with the Devil, another one recently, where my God, talk about a game that's both an event and a novelty. Like that's all of it wrapped into one. That game was almost interesting enough to keep just to show to people for like how weird it was.
Yeah.
But like I had the same reaction. I played it once and it was hard to drum up the enthusiasm to like play it again.
Yeah.
I want to play it again. No, I don't know about Deal with the Devil. I want to play Kutna Ora again.
Yeah. That's a good one. That's a good reason.
That is the opposite of hit it and quit it.
Sort of along the lines of event games. Well, this is not really an event game, but games that I guess go in there knowing I'm not going to like, but I'm happy to have played once would be a game like Nemesis. A little too random for my want to play it over and over again, but it is very thematic and evocative, and I'm happy, even though I had an alien kill me 30 minutes into a 3-hour game. It was fun. It has like a lot of like gimmicky aspects, like that red film to see secret messages and the whole aliens vibe and the semi-cooperative nature. That's all like fun. It's again a little too random and not exactly what I'm looking for in a board game mostly, but I'm happy I played it the one time for sure.
All right, that's going to do it for this episode of the Board Game Barrage podcast, but we'd love to hear about games that you have played once, you got your fill. It's not just that you hated it, because we get it. Never play that again. But it's like, oh,
yeah,
you got it.
There's something there.
Oh. And then you moved on. And then you haven't thought about the game for many, many years. And you ghosted them.
Until you get lonely one night.
But you have fun memories.
Yeah, exactly.
Thank you so much to Hard Society Music for their song, What's on Your Mind, Kid, from their album, Wake the Queens. You can find them. Oh, you can't. They're dead band. But their song lives on through us. You can find us at boardgamebarrage@gmail.com. You can find us on Discord. You can find us on Instagram. You can find us on X, formerly known as Twitter. That is also dead. You can... I don't think we're on the Blue Sky place.
Oh, we are on Blue Sky. We are on Blue Sky.
Oh, we are. Yeah. We are. We're on the Blue Sky. We are there with the cute butterfly.
Yeah, sure.
Isn't it a butterfly?
You could say. Yeah, it is a butterfly.
I don't know. Who knows? Yeah. Who could say? I can say it's a butterfly. Thank you so much. Until next time, so long and good night.
Bye-bye.
Goodbye.
I'm high. I'm ready. I want you to save me.
1, 2, 3. I'm not recording here either.
I thought there was a clap count.
Oh, sorry. There's that. There's that. Okay.
All right. 3 and 2 and 1.
Were we meant to count an and?
I love it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Throw as many words as you can in there.
Yeah. I was at least expecting like a final and, 3 and 2 and 1
I
and.
went salsa dancing with Christina.
Wow.
It's 1 and 2 and... Well, it's 1, 2, 3, pause. 4, 5, 6, pause. So there's a little bit of... I have unlocked additional rhythm. You see?
Nice.
One class. Actually, for the bonus, we met a who are probably swingers, and we were no, and probably furries. I think we were being recruited.
Uh-huh.
Oh my gosh.
I think we were being recruited. I'm not joking.
Okay.
I have a list.
Does any of this make it to the
Listen,
outro of this
if
episode?
you want it in the well, the guy does play board games, so sorry,
Okay.
bro. All right. Hello, and welcome to episode number...